Hey everyone, behind the scenes for the number one healthcare radio show in the San Francisco Bay Area, number one women in innovation podcast in the nation, but I'm going to say woman and man innovation podcast in the nation, according to FeedSpot for 2025. We have an incredible guest coming up in just a moment, so I'm going to turn it over to our producer for KDOW Radio, Chris D, and let's get this show started.
Toxin Treatment Helpline.
KDOW, Palo Alto,
Bay Area's business leader at KDOW.biz. On our mobile app, tune in, iHeart, and the Odyssey app.
We go where you go.
AM 1220 KDOW.
Sponsored by The Way to My Heart Incorporated.
Welcome to the Heart of Innovation. 60 minutes that could save life and limb with new breakthrough ideas and innovation changing the healthcare landscape. Brought to you by Patient Advocacy Group, the Global PAD Association at padhealth.org, in partnership with Reflow Medical, the pulse of medical ingenuity. Here are your hosts for the Heart of Innovation, Emmy Award-winning journalist and founder of the Global PAD Association, Kim McNicholas, and interventional cardiologist and founder of Save My Piggies Health and Wellness, Dr. John Phillips.
If you love racing, this is going to be the show for you. Did you know that the pit crew for NASCAR are actually athletes? Well, I'm going to introduce you to the exercise physiologist behind 7+ NASCAR championships. And this, I think, is a show that is going to win over my amazing co-host, Dr. John Phillips. You're all about sports. You love every single sports. You love performance. You have game day helping those guys get back into the game. So I did this for you. I'm going to introduce you to a really good friend of mine that I have adored for literally, I think, oh God, we're going to be old here, more than 20 years, I have a feeling. Michael Lepp is an exercise physiologist with Zone 1 Human Performance. And you won't believe the stories we're going to hear over the next hour on how he's been able to get these, pit crews to win championships and cyclists to win their game. So cross the finish line. So yay, this is going to be a good show.
Yeah, I enjoy sports, and obviously March Madness is going on here. And I don't know if you caught that Kentucky game, but that was, I missed it. Oh my God. Well, you'll have to look it up, but it was crazy. The game was tied, and then was it Santa Clara? I think they were playing, hit a 3-pointer with like 2 seconds left. So you think the game's over. And then guy in Kentucky threw up almost a half-court shot, made it off the backboard to go into overtime, and then they ended up winning. I didn't see it live, but it's been like all over. And yeah, this is a great time of the year. I love sports. You love sport. I mean, we love it. Like, right? I think sports allows us to, fantasize a little bit and turn our lives off to what's going on around the world right now. And it's a little bleak, frankly. So I'm happy to talk sports and learn about exercise physiology as well. We're always trying, as cardiologists, we want to maximize people's ability to not only be well, but to exercise. And we know that exercise is the elixir of life. I tell every patient this. You exercise more, you're going to live longer, die less of cancer and heart attack and stroke. So let's get to it. And plus, I have some pretty good inspirational quotes for today. So.
Ooh, I can't wait. But you know that I was the first female sports director in the San Francisco Bay Area, and the first one to have a racing show, which is how I met Michael. So I can't wait for Michael to share that story. But let's get things started right away. Lots to talk about with a moment of inspiration.
Dr. John Phillips, spectacular, vascular moment of inspiration.
Okay, so these are not really inspirational, but I thought it's apropos to have a little bit of quoting trivia or some quotes from Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris passed away this week.
I just heard.
I know, and I don't know if you've seen some of these things, but he basically turned into a meme, because everything exaggerates how tough he was. And so there are calendars and there's all sorts of stuff. So look them up at some point. But I just want to share a couple of these because these are like classic Chuck Norris jokes. So one was that when Chuck Norris enters a room, he doesn't turn the lights on, he turns the dark off.
Oh yeah.
And then
Michael. Oh my gosh.
I got two more. Hang with me here. Chuck Norris can divide by 0.
Oh, wait. You had, for those of you who are not on YouTube watching the celebration, somehow Dr. John always has some sort of magical powers to have these celebrations in the hospital.
Well, Joshua must know. It's on my MacBook. Like when I talk with my hands a lot because I'm half Sicilian and like I don't know what it does, but it must trigger something. Okay, so my last one and then I'm done. Death once had a near Chuck Norris experience. Okay, I'm done. Mic drop.
It's a good one.
Those are good. That's a good way to kick things off. That was nice. Good tribute to
wait, real quick. Josh just put something in the chat. Chuck Norris counted to infinity twice. Okay, that's it. Sorry. Back to the seriousness.
Back to the I guarantee you with Michael, it's so not going to be serious. He has some incredible stories. And even from the moment that he and I met, I was pretty much, Michael, how many female sportscasters were there on pit road?
You know, there's more now. There's more now. But you were, that's about it. I think, you know, it's especially when you consider, you know, NASCAR's expansion into an area that, you know, the wine country, when most people classify, you know, that's a beer sport, you know, and here we are in the wine country racing in Sonoma. So I always thought, you know, I always found things there different than a lot of places we go. And you seem to be very innovative to want to know, especially about the pit stops. Everybody wants to say, well, let's do this race car and this race car driver. You know, and now there are series on F1, you know, the F1 series, and it's all about the, you know, the drivers in their life. You wanted to know about these pit stops and how important they were and that type of thing. So you were thinking out of the box even there.
I mean, it was because I was looking at it as it was from the wall to the win. They were the integral part. The pit crew was the integral part of that win. And they were performance athletes, right? Or at least you helped turn them into performance athletes.
Yeah, it was, I think, 2005 that the sport was, you know, all motorsports are this way. So you can say F1, IndyCar, NASCAR. The engineers have made these cars to where they are so aero sensitive on the racetrack. And the skill of the driver was still important, but what was happening was they tested these cars isolated in wind tunnels. There was no other car in front of them or in back of them. And so when they got on the racetrack, things changed. And the ability to pass became very difficult. You could have the best car, but when you got in those aero situations, the car, and like I said, this is in all motorsports now. I think, what are they, about 10 passes a race in F1? Sorry, F1. But in NASCAR, they couldn't pass. And it depended on the race, but there could be anywhere from 5 to 12 pit stops a race. And everybody comes in together. And if you can pass cars on pit roads by having a faster pit stop, you pass that car. And now you were going to be hard to pass on the track. So, you know, in the 2000s, it started to become big. And I had my cycling training program in an office park where there was a loop, and I was able to do blood lactates and things like that. It was contained, and it happened to be in the same place as Joe Gibbs Racing. And Joe Gibbs Racing, you know, a lot of people don't know, Joe won 3 Super Bowls, and I'm going to give him credit. He won 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks, right?
And right there, we are going to have our first pit stop. Thanks to our producer, Josh, for that one. Love it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, that's coming up next right here on The Heart of Innovation on KDOW. We're going to find out how Michael Lepp helped to make the pit stop less than 12 seconds. Don't want to miss it. Stay with us. Thank you, Joshua.
Good job, Joshua.
Woo, I had to give you credit for that because I can't believe I didn't come up with that. Yes, I can. But yeah, you. That's awesome. I couldn't just say it. I could have just taken full credit and gone with it, but that was too good. Yeah, so, and we'll get into, so he also, Dr. John, helped with, so Lance Armstrong in cycling. So that was pretty incredible. And you were also one of, you put together some of the first rehab programs for cardiovascular in the Charlotte area.
In the 1970s, sports scientists now are everywhere. Not most of them aren't qualified, but they call themselves sports scientists. They don't have the degrees. But back then, you couldn't work in sports. You couldn't make money in sports. But you had a lot of training in the cardiology testing background. And so I started off in cardiology for a long time. But I also say, which we'll say in particular, everybody's an athlete. I met cardiac patients for the first time on a track at the University of South Florida. I said, I was out running. I was like, what are these older people doing walking around this track?
30 seconds.
Cardiac rehab patients.
Mm-hmm.
Michael, just
where do you want to take this
really,
next segment? Just
well, we got to. He
had
us with a little bit.
So many questions.
Yeah, he started off. He had a cliffhanger in the end where he was in the same parking lot training cyclists, and Joe Gibbs Racing was there, and that was his foray into it.
All right, we can do that.
6933 AM 1220 KDOW.
Welcome back to the Heart of Innovation. For more on today's topic, go to theheartofinnovation.org. That's theheartofinnovation.org. Once again, here's Emmy Award-winning journalist Kim McNicholas and interventional cardiologist Dr. John Phillips.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us. My head is spinning like the cars on a race car track because I've got so many questions for Michael. But so let's just finish the story. Before we went to break, you were speaking to the serendipity, it sounds like, with respect to what you were doing. It sounds like with exercise physiology.
Yes.
And it just so happened to be near Joe Gibbs Racing team or whatever. So that's kind of how you got paired up in NASCAR. Is that right?
Yeah, and look, I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is kind of the hub of NASCAR, so I knew about the sport. And I had been brought in. Sports Illustrated did a story on NASCAR drivers back in the 80s, and they brought NASCAR drivers into my lab to be tested, and most of them were sicker than my cardiac patients. So they were in horrible shape, and Sports Illustrated published a story about how horribly bad, out of shape. But when everybody's out of shape, nobody has an advantage, right? So things have changed.
Michael, let me just ask you this, because from a guy that I don't watch a lot of NASCAR, I've watched some of the F1 stuff, and you kind of see how those guys train. But I would imagine a lot of people listening, and I'm going to be wrong here probably, but there's the assumption that they're kind of like Will Ferrell and that other guy from
Talladega Nights.
So that's obviously a fallacy, right? These are
it's a fallacy. Athletes. These guys now are, you can't. And I did a lot of the first testing in NASCAR drivers. So we put heart rate monitors on them in the car and seeing that their heart rates were 170, 180 beats per minute for 5 hours.
Are you kidding?
Yes. And once again, that's the adrenaline chemical component as much as it is anything else, but the heat. Every ounce in a race car slows it down. And so there's no air conditioning. There's cool suits and things like that, but the engineers get all wound up whenever you add an ounce of weight. So you have to be in good shape. And when I was in the office park, this huge, it's a 80,000 square foot facility of Joe Gibbs Racing, and J.D. Gibbs, Joe Gibbs' son. And I got to finish here. Joe and I still talk, and it's like he won 3 Super Bowls with 3/4 pieces, and none of them are going to the Hall of Fame. So the whole Tom Brady, Belichick, could he have won without Tom Brady? Who knows? And so J.D. Gibbs was his son, his late son now, but his son ran the race team, and he loved to race his bicycle. And so he came up to me and said, I know you've got an office over in the office park over there. What if I give you a free office, put you in our facility, if you can find a way to make pit stops faster? And I said, free office space? Sure. Why not? So that's how I got into Joe Gibbs. And then I started looking at these pit stops. And you'll appreciate this. I'm a big diagnose before you prescribe. And so I said, JD, I'm going to need at least 3 months to figure this out. Let me study it, and then maybe we can come up with a plan. And so at the end of that, I had a plan. Pit stops were running about 16 seconds. I decided we'll get them under 12 seconds. And people thought I was full of crap. And I said, we'll get them under 12 seconds. And I called it the S12 project. And it was
what were these pit crew members like before you got your hands on them? What was their lifestyle, their diet? Was there exercise in the vocabulary?
Everybody, thinks there was some top secret thing. Well, the first thing was, and the foundation of the change that we had to make was, these guys were also the mechanics and the people who worked on the cars. So they were working a 8 to 12 hour day, and then they would come out to pit practice. So it was the best of the mechanics. So they weren't the dedicated athlete. And so the first thing I said was, that's got to stop. These guys can't work, 8 hours a day, 12 hours, and then come out and do pit stops. It's got to be a full-time thing. And so that was a big change, and anybody in the sport could have done that. And JD said, yeah, let's do that.
So you called them athletes, the guys in the pit stop. Well, now you call them athletes. So like, again, in my head, probably wrong, I'm envisioning a mechanic, that's a little bit maybe pot-bellied, maybe has a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, but good at his job, like then trying to
also could be athletic. I mean, things had changed, but these guys in NASCAR, it's a 32 weeks, 34 weeks on the road and everything else. And they were worn out.
Okay. So they're part of the team. They're already part of the team.
But they're the most athletic of the, they were still cranking out these 16-second pit stops, but they had 100 other things on their mind. They, were worn out working and it's probably not the kind of, what do we call, the grease monkey, Talladega Nights type of mechanic. They were, and there were some athletes who had gotten into it.
Can you explain to us, like, what exactly it makes up a pit stop? Like in our minds.
Very good question.
Let's
dissect
that.
Basically, the most common pit stops are going to change 4 tires, put 20 gallons of gas in the car, and potentially you could put a wrench in and make an adjustment, but those are going to cost you time. But the core thing is changing those 4 tires. Those tires are about 85 pounds. And in a run of 50 miles, they're gone. They're worn out. And tires produce grip, and so you need to change the tires. And you have to fill it with fuel. It's 20 gallons of fuel. That gas can that they fill it with fuel with, it's not a hose like at the 7-Eleven. It's that tank weighs about 100 pounds, and there are 2 cans have to be put in during the stop. And there are 7 guys back then, but 6 guys are doing that. 2 tire changers, 2 tire carriers. A jack man has got to jack the car up. Car weighs 3,000 pounds. So you got to get that car up on about 2 pumps. And you got to be fast on your feet.
Well, you said 2 pumps.
2 pumps, boom, boom. And you jump on that thing and you use a lot of force. Most of us couldn't even push it up, jumping on it 10 times. And then
Norris could.
Chuck could have done it. I
With
think.
one finger.
Chuck could have done one finger. Could have done it. Yeah. And so that's basically what you have to do on that pit stop. The lug nuts, though, the tire changers, the money makers. At that time, now there's just 1 lug nut on the cars these days, but at that time you had to hit 5 lug nuts in less than a second with that pit gun. So, your eye-hand coordination's got to be off the charts. 5 lug nuts, and you can't even see their hands move, basically. And so if you miss a lug nut, that costs you about 4/10 on the pit stop. If you miss 2, 8/10, 3. So you can't miss these 5 lug nuts, 5 off, 5 on. And then you run around the car. You've got to be able to get off that squatting position and take off around the car to do the other side. So that's the main pit stop. And at that time, they were running in the 15, 16-second range. And like I said, I was
coming up right here on the Heart of Innovation. We're going to figure out how he got these athletes to get in shape. I know we're cornering as if on rails down the fast track. That's next, right here on the Heart of Innovation. Don't go away. Goodness.
I am so fascinated right now.
I know. See, I told you.
So is it one guy that changes the tires?
No. There's 2 tire changers, a front changer and a rear changer,
and the jack.
A front carrier and a rear carrier, and the jack man. The carriers carry that 80-pound tire, out to the right side of the car is done first. The tire changer hits 5 lug nuts, quickly pulls the tire off, and the carrier goes in, slams the car, and has to hit those 5 studs precisely. And then the changer goes right back in, hits 5, and then they take off around the car to the other side of the car, the left side of the car, and do the same thing. Their foot speed, I found out that foot speed and acceleration were the key thing. And one of the ways
that's what we have to get into probably coming back is the foot speed and such. But I want to mention, say hello to Michael, who's also another Michael on the, I think on the, Michael 1975 says hello. He's on YouTube. Thanks everyone watching on YouTube and on social media. Douglas is mentioning about Jimmy Johnson running marathons. I know Carl Edwards. My Carl Edwards story is a really funny one. Yeah. He was great.
Carl
but then
was
he
one of the first super fit kind of. In other words, athletes these guys were starting to get in shape, but Carl brought it to another level. I gave him
my TRX set.
Okay.
But so
I gave him my TRX.
It sounds like it's obviously the drivers are in shape because they have to have fantastic hand-eye coordination, strong necks, and whatever. But so if that's all equal, then your job was to say, okay, how do I get their pit crew in shape?
Oh yeah.
Speed and the acceleration.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And here's the thing.
You said 1 second to get all those 5.
Yeah. Even less than a second. Their hand speed, and I'll send you some videos.
Oh man,
you can look at these.
My father-in-law loves NASCAR.
Yeah.
We have
shout out to Jim
Douglas, who also just said that there was a 9. What did he say? Last year, Denny Hamlin won Darlington because of a 9.7 second.
Now
stop.
This pit stop is a new era. There's only one lug nut.
So it's different.
It's just one. It's very similar to the open wheel cars now. So they don't have 5 lug nuts. It's just one lug nut. So 9-second pit stops that you're seeing now are totally different than the pit stops that we had back then. Yeah.
Harry was mentioning
it was 2 years ago. Went to that. Yeah.
Her girlfriend's son is the lead tire changer for Hendrick. Amazing
Mhm.
athlete, played football at Alabama first.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
Dr. John, are you bringing us back or me?
Yep, sorry, I'm just checking on a patient. Good.
No,
I'm
that's fine. I was going to let you. I just wanted to make sure I didn't want to steal your thunder.
I'm gonna
Mhm.
Days of Thunder. I
They-
mean, isn't that
23. 1220 KDOW.
Welcome back to the Heart of Innovation. For more on today's topic, go to theheartofinnovation.org. That's theheartofinnovation.org. Once again, here's Emmy Award-winning journalist Kim McNicholas and interventional cardiologist Dr. John Phillips.
Welcome back, everybody. You know, I was thinking about Michael when you're telling us the lug nuts and 5 in a second. I'd be like Ralphie, you know, in the Christmas Story. He like knocks the lug nuts and says the F word. So anyway,
Yes.
My head, I would love to talk about this forever, but I think we've got to get to like what it is that you did for these guys to increase, I think you said their foot speed and the acceleration to get these tires changed and get moving, right?
yeah.
The first thing I'd have to say is you had to go find these people. And I used one of I'm going to even tell his name, Nate Bowling. This guy was 6'6", about 230, 240 pounds. And I recruited him to come in. He had been on the Red Bull racing team in NASCAR at the time. And I brought him in, and he had played he was a defensive end with the Baltimore Ravens for a couple of years. And I brought him in. I said, a guy this big, I mean, he's strong. He's going to be able to jack that car up. But his foot speed was off the charts, which is what he alerted me to. Oh my goodness. From a human performance standpoint, whether it's any of these positions, look at what this guy does. I've never seen a man run that fast at that size, but that's what defensive ends do. Yeah. He always told me, I have one goal: to go kill the quarterback. You know, I go from this end and I'm going to get to that quarterback, and I have to get there as fast as I can. That skill transferred over to being a jack man. And that alerted me, can I find other people that can do that? So the base is you've got to find people that have that. The next thing is the mental side, because I tell people these are the domestiques of NASCAR. The only time you ever hear about a pit crew guy is if he messes up. Yeah. It's about the driver. The driver is the key. And oftentimes the drivers aren't very friendly to these guys when they make mistakes. So the pressure they feel, and oftentimes that comes from athletics, where you're in pressure situations. So that's kind of where we had to go. We had to get athletes, and then there was the mental component.
And so you actually, what was the transition like, going from saying to the mechanics and the people that had been working so hard on the car that you would think that they would say, gosh, that's like the payoff is being a part of, being on pit road. And you're now saying, well, you can do all the work, fix the car, make it run, but we need to bring in the, those that are the closer, right? It's almost like you have a whole different team as the closer.
Who know nothing about the mechanics.
Right. And they don't know what a lug nut is. Place this here.
This is why Kim's good at what she does.
Of course.
That was the biggest transition, because these mechanics hated these guys. Athletes, what are they, why these guys are given, they don't have to work on the car. I had them doing breath work and relaxation training. We get there 6-7 hours before the race to get everything ready. And those guys are working hard in the garage. These guys are doing breath work and stretching. And that kind of hard thing, that was hard. It was a transition. Now, what did I do to make it go away? What did they do to make it go away? They started.
We're going to find out next, right here on the Heart of Innovation. Yeah. Don't go away.
Wait, are we already on 4 now?
4. I know. We might have to have him come back to do his cycling stories.
Yeah, there's way too much to unpack here.
Well, and you're leaving out my years of working with PAD and cardiac patients.
Yeah, we're not even touching that.
Yeah, it's my dawn patrol athletes that cardiac rehab at that time, it wasn't inpatient. It was, we used a YMCA track for it. And we called them the Dawn Patrol. And they were some of my best athlete stories I've ever had, because I'm Bill Bowerman with Nike, who said everyone is an athlete. So even my cardiac patients were like, and peripheral PAD patients were athletes.
But did you work with the drivers or mainly the pit crew?
Both.
Okay.
The drivers, we were already into that
with
transition.
Jeff Gordon.
Yeah, Jeff Gordon, way before drivers started getting in shape. His dad came to me and said,
"Yeah, because he was
I need to get Jeff. I need to get Jeff in shape." And it was in that transition when drivers started to realize there were two things. Number one, this is a funny story. All drivers weigh 180 pounds. All drivers weigh 180
like jockeys,
pounds.
Right? I mean,
well, yeah, it's 180 pounds. So if you weigh 150 pounds, the team has to put 30 pounds into the car, okay, to make every driver to be 180 pounds. So, but guess what? I get to decide where the weight goes. So the lower you get below 180 pounds, that extra weight's got to go into the car, but I can put it low and left. Low and left makes the car turn better. If you weigh more than that, then you can take weight out, but it's 180. So the best thing is lose weight, driver, and I can put weight in the rails, low and left. Low and left makes the car turn better.
It was interesting to see how Tony Stewart evolved over time with his weight.
Tony and I are good friends, and he was on our team. And Tony and I are good friends to this day, and Tony is different. And Tony, I could tell stories that we can't tell on radio, but I could tell you, but getting Tony to lose weight was one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah.
And he is one of the best race car drivers, skill wise, that ever lived. So.
He really was. My first time, I have to share that my first time, interviewing him, I actually was running the camera because I wanted my the co-host to actually do the very first NASCAR driver interview, and it was with him. And I set up the camera, and he starts, Peter, his name was, starts the interview, and Tony looks at him. He's like, "I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to her."
No, that's Tony. You just told a Tony story, right? That's.
He was like, and we laughed, and he was like, "No, I'm serious."
Let me tell you, he's the only athlete that's ever apologized to me. And
really?
Yes,
he has a good heart.
He has a good heart, and people don't realize that. We had a bad pit stop, and you can hear these drivers now just over the radio, because you get to hear the radio, just trashed. And after the race, he had a radio show back then. He did a radio show on the NASCAR channel, and he came on hit the radio. He says, "The first thing I'm going to do today is apologize to Mike Lepp for being mad at him yesterday." Aww. I've never had that. I don't take it personally, but I'll never forget Tony for that.
He really is a good guy. I actually did the Forbes magazine story on him.
Yes,
which was really fun. I love.
He's brilliant. He's brilliant. Here, we can say this now before we go back on. I always said, "What makes you so?"
We're live.
Is it the hands?
We're live, though.
We're still live. Just FYI.
Okay, I will just say this. I drive with my butt. The key part of a driver is their butt. And I go, "What?" He said, "I can feel through the seat when the car's right at the edge of spinning out, and that's the fastest the car." So when I asked him, "What makes a good driver? What's that feeling?" He says, "You got to have a good butt." There you go.
Interesting.
The secret. I thought it was going to be, no, it's feeling the car. And that's how.
I have a great ass. Thank you, Josh.
Yes. No, I didn't use the word ass, so
no, we didn't.
I said butt. So but it's the same, you know,
Glutes.
right?
You need good glutes to get
Good
in.
glute
Well,
sensation
glute
through
sensation.
that. And he would have the seat would have to have a certain, you know, they
Feel.
would spend so much time getting his seats, you know, because
Oh,
they are
good
accustomed to
question.
them. Yeah.
We have a question that's coming in we should get to during
Okay.
about do pit crew, you know, guys wear special shoes, boots so they don't slip.
Yes.
But that'll be a good one. But where did we end off? We had a cliffhanger going into the break, and now we got onto I'm starting to think about
I can't get
butts.
driving with my butt out of my head. So
Yeah.
No, I
yes,
know, me
yes,
too.
yes.
Now I can't remember how you ended
Now
up.
you're never going to buy a car again without paying more attention to the seat.
yeah, so I guess we've got 7.5 minutes or so. What they say? Yeah, 7.5.
Yeah,
for
how did
segment
we
4.
leave off, Michael? What was the
Oh,
cliffhanger?
what were we talking about? Gosh, I forget.
I know, because you start talking about acid and you end up
I know.
getting distracted.
Yeah. No, you said you had somebody.
30 seconds.
Somebody had left a question.
I'll come up.
Yeah, but what was the cliffhanger? I can't remember where we
That's
were.
all right.
Oh, well, sorry,
What,
guys,
That's
if
okay.
you're listening on the radio. Whoops.
I'm going to ask you something, Mike. It's going to come right to me.
Right.
We'll see.
I'm ready.
Pain reliever have been recalled due to reports of particles and other possible contaminants. This is SRN.
AM 1220 KDOW.
Welcome back to the Heart of Innovation. For more on today's topic, go to theheartofinnovation.org. That's theheartofinnovation.org. Once again, here's Emmy Award-winning journalist Kim McNicholas and interventional cardiologist Dr. John Phillips.
You have to make sure you check out our YouTube station because you're missing a lot of conversation between the breaks here. And Kim's going to do a fantastic job of editing it, so everyone can hear. But so Michael, and I've got to give a shout out to my father-in-law, Jim, because he's a huge NASCAR fan. So are we done with the pit stops? Like, do we need to dissect this?
Yeah, we got to get it under 12 seconds.
Got to get under 12 seconds.
No, and look, it's like anything. It's like if I get a PAD patient and I'm going to write a training plan for them, or in medicine, we call it an exercise prescription. When I write that training program, it's going to be multifactorial. There's going to be a mental component to it. There's going to be the physical training. How there are ways to fix. So we renovated our training facility, our gym. We, the type of equipment we put in, we were very specific, athlete specific with their training programs. That's no different than the exercise training program I write for a cardiac patient it's no different. There's a plan. And so having a plan, nobody had ever had a plan. And then I'm going to put the psychological part in it. J.D. Gibbs, who passed away from frontal temporal, same thing Bruce Willis has, at 49. But he's one of the greatest humans I ever met. And he always told me, he gave me a credit card from the company. And he said, you can run up anything you want on that credit card as long as it's taking care of these guys, whether that be taking them to dinner, taking their families to dinner, doing those things. And that's one of the intangibles, having a good support system in an athlete who's on the road 30 weeks out of the year, on the weekends, when their kids are playing baseball, when their kids are playing sports, they miss all that. And so often, and JD knew that, you've got to bring that part, because Alan Lim, who's a tremendous person, a physiologist, and he told me one time, I said, what did you do to make these guys, what was the predictor when these guys were going to underperform? What is it? And he said, well, I wish I could tell you it was some physiological marker but it was usually whether they broke up with their girlfriend or had a family issue. And I was like, what? He said, yeah, that's usually a predictor they're going to underperform. So this holistic approach that we took to making these guys faster Could I say it was one thing? No, it's marginal gain. There's marginal gain components to it. And that's true with my cardiac. If I go back and see my cardiac patients who improved, the ones that had the group mentality where everybody support the Dawn Patrol, my exercise cardiac group that I had, oftentimes I could just go sit in the bleachers. They took care of themselves. They related things they were going through and things like that. So, I have to be like Alan and say, well, it's not always, you've got to provide an exercise training program that produces an outcome, right? But there are other things.
A lot of that is psychological.
Yes, absolutely. The mind,
and so,
the mindset is critical.
And I'm sure that all of what you did to help these athletes really truly does apply to cardiovascular and vascular, the PAD, the poor circulation in the legs, those patients. But, it's about taking those 12 seconds, right?
Yes.
And slowing it down.
Yes.
I would imagine. And helping them to be present. Because during that time, you can take one more step.
What is the number one thing I say? I tell people that they don't understand it. Go slow to go fast. You have to go slow to go fast.
So, Michael, did you recruit these guys? Did you recruit athletes to be mechanics or mechanics to be athletes?
No. This was all just athletes after. That took about a year or two to get. And to get the mechanic, and guess, we were talking about how the mechanics did not like these athletes coming in. Well, they don't know anything about racing. Well, I have to know anything about racing to do this pit stop, right? It took a few years to get that. But when they started producing 12-second pit stops, guess what? That's more, that's more money in my pocket. Winning, the one thing about Joe Gibbs Racing, and Joe was this way, and JD was, the win got distributed to the team. They didn't put it in the bank. So if you won $1 million, if you won $1 million in a year in race winnings, that all goes to the team. And when you find out these pit crew athletes were key to getting that money, and that they cared truly about winning, that totally broke down. They appreciated these athletes. They loved them.
Can you walk us through a day in the life on a race day for these particular athletes, this pit crew? And I know we compared it to the poor mechanics that are under the car getting, grease monkeys, versus the others breathing.
No, I tell people from the footwear to the fire suit they wear, they've got to be hydrated because typically NASCAR races are in the summer, it's 90 degrees and you're in picture going in a fully sealed 3-layer suit. And so staying hydrated, the footwear is fireproof. New Balance developed a fireproof athletic shoe. We were a lot behind that at the time to develop a shoe that you need to be able to, you can't wear a boot, which is basically what they were wearing before we got these really good. Nike started it and then New Balance. And so, but you've got to sit in the same way. If you go to a football game and you get there 2 hours before the football game, you see these guys on the field getting ready. There's a 2-hour process to get ready, whether that's hydration. We hired a massage therapist. We did a lot of things that these guys did to get ready for these, 10 pit stops they're going to do in a race. And so it's very similar to any sport. When you get to a baseball game, you see batting practice, infield practice. So these guys started using that mindset of how they prepare for when the race starts.
Wow, because it's very different than what anyone else is doing, right? And you probably had them doing some warm-ups and
oh, absolutely. Yeah, warm-ups, working. Look, there's also equipment involved here. This pit gun, which, you have to get those things ready, getting the pit stall ready. We spray those pit stalls down with an adhesive that makes it to where you don't slip, in that cutting around the car, things like that. NASCAR.
What about the gas? Are those pre-filled tanks? I know we got like 10 seconds.
No. What happens is you get those tanks, you have to, once you empty them, they go back to Shell and Shell fills them and you bring them back.
Well, coming up next right
yeah.
here on the Heart of Innovation, we're going to have final thoughts. I know this has been a fast race, literally straight to the finish. That's next right here on KDOW. Don't go away. Checkered flag coming up.
Checkered flag. That is good. Yeah. I see. This is why you're good.
Josh will Josh will throw us some, like, in the chat. He throws us little softballs.
Yeah, I wish I could take credit for all that
Yeah,
one.
that's interesting. The gas is regulated, right? I mean, everybody.
Yes, everybody gets
the
their fuel
burnout
from the same place, and everybody gets the fuel from the, has to take they pull the cans back and they get refilled and brought. You have 2 full cans, and depending on when the pit stop occurs, you don't necessarily dump 12 gallons. If a caution comes out, you may only have to put 1 can in. Tires is the key. Getting fresh tires. So if a lap
You
is
keep them
30,
covered, like I see on the F1.
oh yeah. Yeah. And you get those tires ready, and they're just, you have to have the lug nuts glued on them in advance and everything. So, tires are critical in motorsports. You see how the times fall off when you don't have those.
I'm curious, just, if you have a couple stories that, I think Dr. John froze, or, yep, it's Dr. John that froze. I was wondering if it was me for a second, but then I see everybody moving. So where you ended up having a couple failures out there that it led to changes. Like, what happens when there's a problem and an athlete has a problem? I'm sure that could be devastating for them, and psychologically, the next pit stop, how you're going to get them back on. So there he is. There's John.
Sorry, yeah, my computer, literally, I'm in our hospital and our Wi-Fi is atrocious and it will just stop. Anyway.
Yeah, are you watching the pit? Because they're having that problem too. Their whole
the
whole medical system. The medical system, their Wi-Fi went out. That was not good.
No. So I was going to say, I don't know if you guys had a plan for the last 4 minutes, but I was kind of curious, if you could tell us the craziest pit stop story.
That's kind of what I want. In the last, it'd be fun to have a couple of stories and, that kind of thing when we get into. We only have 4 minutes, so when you're looking, if you look in the chat, they'll count us down and they'll say 30 seconds music on, and just kind of quick wrap up, and we say thanks so much.
Yeah,
30 seconds.
Fascinating. This is so cool. I love this.
I know. So we're gonna have you back.
Yes, you got
to talk cycling next.
Yeah, let's talk cycling.
Yeah. Oh, I've got stories there. Good stories.
Yeah.
I always tell people the overrating of PEDs. That's what we can talk about. Everybody forgot that we brought science to the sport and medicine to the sport, and that actually has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Heart of Innovation. For more on today's topic, go to theheartofinnovation.org. That's theheartofinnovation.org. Once again, here's Emmy Award-winning journalist Kim McNicholas and interventional cardiologist Dr. John Phillips.
Well, folks, this is our final lap. We're rounding third, whatever analogy you want me to use. But Michael, share with us, if you can, a couple crazy pit stop stories to wrap the show.
Well, in the early time of my integrating the athlete into the sport, and it's interesting, the race is in Darlington this weekend, and this story happened in Darlington, which was one of the old classic tracks in NASCAR. And this is when I still had half mechanics, half athletes, and they just weren't. And there was still the question is, what the hell is this guy doing? He is a nerd. And I'm a nerd compared to, didn't come from that racing background. But the pit crew Denny Hamlin was leading the race, and the pit crew, horrible pit stop on the last, we call the money stop. And he went from first to 13th. And it was like, oh, geez. And, it was, not good. And so we got all packed up and we were going to get in our cars. And Darlington's close to Charlotte. So we were driving back and I turned on the radio and it was NASCAR radio talking about the race. And they were interviewing the crew chief. He's the head of the car, interviewing the crew chief. And I'm driving up the road and he says, well, yeah, we had the race run and then that pit crew did what they did and they'll all be unemployed on Monday.
Oh boy.
He fired everybody now JD wouldn't let him do that, but they all got fired. They were sitting in my car. Oh, we all just got fired on the radio. So I don't know if that's funny.
Wow.
I don't know if that's funny. And it's interesting. Mike Ford, who's a great guy, we ended up having the fastest pit crew in the history of the sport. That 11 car became the fastest pit crew in the history of the sport. And I wish they could go to the Hall of Fame. But they don't put pit crew guys in the Hall of Fame yet, but hopefully they will.
That's awesome.
At some point. So, it was funny and it was not funny, but it was kind of, you usually picture I'm going to get fired and be called to the office, not on.
What if you can't get the lug nut off?
Sometimes guns fail, things fail. There's things, but that's also where the preparation. That stuff generally doesn't happen if you prepare properly. You don't want mechanical failure. I guess if you're going to fail, it would be the physical component of failing on the pit stop. But there are mechanical fails. Jacks will break. The lug nut will get stuck, and you can't get it off. And if you can't get it off, you're not getting that tire off. So they're rare. I'm going to say, less than 5% of the time it's their mechanical. Usually when there's a slow pit stop, it's in that physical motor skill component and like I said, 2 to 3/10 of a second can cost you 4 spots on the racetrack. So there's a lot of pressure. And if I get called to, when I retired, it was like, oh, I'm going to go out and speak to a lot of our partners and everything. The number one requested topic is performance under pressure.
And on that note, the checkered flag. Thanks so much, Michael Lepp.
Yeah.
Exercise physiologist. Follow him.
Here's our winning car.
There it is.
Awesome.
Zone 1 on Instagram.
All right.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.
You've been listening.
And I think we want to continue just for a few more minutes here on YouTube. If we could just stick around, because we have a huge NASCAR fan that he's been supplying facts in our chat. We have Douglas who's here that just is chomping at the bit to jump in.
I'm going to listen and check on something, okay?
Fantastic. Douglas, go ahead. I know you've been so patient, but you've been providing some great facts in chat. So longtime NASCAR fan, go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, I'm 64. I have been a NASCAR fan my whole life.
Why do I think I know you? I think I've seen you somewhere.
I absolutely love it. And today it's interesting listening because I remember Richard Petty pit crew and all of that back then. And you listen to the news today, they're interviewing the pit crew now, and the guy goes, I'm Jack Brooks, defensive end, Alabama.
Yes. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I think is good now is I think I said in the talk, the only time pit crew guys' names were known was when they messed up. But now I give the media credit. They're bringing the pit crew athletes up and featuring them a little bit. And as long as it doesn't go to their head, I'm good with that. But you only heard the name of a pit crew member when they failed back in the day.
I remember listening to Kyle Busch, just all his pit crew.
Kyle's a good friend. And Kyle is the talks Kyle and I could give you some great talks that we would have, because Kyle is quick to credit. He's very quick to credit you when you do good, but he's also pretty, can go off a little bit. There's some great sound bites if you want to go to YouTube and type in Kyle Busch car sound bites, you'll be entertained.
Michael, I've got to take a phone call. I'm going to mute, but if you guys are still on, I'll jump back on. Okay.
Okay.
Pleasure meeting you. Thank you so much.
I'll send you some stuff.
I love it. Yeah. I'm just going to mute though.
Okay.
But Kyle Busch actually was one of those. I remember it was my first time as a sportscaster covering NASCAR, and Infineon Raceway at the time, now Sonoma Raceway, they were so good with John Cardinale, rest in peace, who created these wonderful luncheons that were intimate. And I remember when I first started, like in 2001, and Kyle Busch was there with his girlfriend, I think at a time. And he was so kind.
Samantha.
Yeah. And it was just a casual conversation. And so again, really big heart.
Kyle, you get that reputation because you're fiery. We can go into any sport and find the fiery, type person. And when he competes, he's very fiery. When you get away from that, he's one of the nicest people I know.
I have one more, Kim, real quick.
Yeah.
Now, you're right. From the 4 lug nut to the 1 lug now has changed a lot. Where do you think in the future we can actually end up? Could we actually end up in under 10 seconds on all pit stops?
Oh yeah, well they're in the 9s now. With the 1 lug nut. Now it's interesting. It's 1 lug nut, but it's not as many guys. There's just 5 guys. So but it's still hitting those 5 lug nuts. If we just say an average, it's going to take a second. So when you're looking at off on 5 seconds, that's what's gotten it. Now, when I say our goal was to get it under 12 seconds, we got it under 12 seconds. And in the last couple of years with the 5 lug nuts, we were in the 11s regularly, upper 10s and 11s. So, I don't know why. I probably to save money. I guess NASCAR's always looking to save money is why they went with the 1 lug nut. But it's still, the pit stops have everybody's grouped together now a lot tighter than they were before. Okay. So I'm going to say it's easier slightly. Now it's probably foot speed is the most important thing over the hitting the lug nut, obviously.
What about the women that are coming into the sport now?
Yeah. There is, why can't I think of her name? She is a tire changer in the Xfinity series and the truck series. So, and there's still the 5 lug nuts there. And there's been 2 or 3 that have given it up. But the women just even genetically don't have fast foot. That acceleration foot speed is a little less. But there have been women who have tried to do that.
It was interesting when I was on pit road, and this is where I think that I started getting interested. And that's where I'm wondering, I'm thinking, and I'm going to go look it up. I'm wondering if I interviewed you when I was at Forbes, because if it really started in 2005, then it's unless, I might have done it for Comcast Sports. So we had a racing show. I've had 2 different racing shows. Might have been that one. I'm going to go take a look, because if it's on Forbes or the last Comcast show, I might have that. But needless to say, what really was of interest to me is when I was watching the guys on pit road that were literally doing leg sweeps. And I don't know what you call them. They were dipping down. They were doing leg sweeps, and they were doing side, things. And they literally, I was like, what in the world are they doing? And then they would have their drill in their hand, and they'd be doing side, feet together, feet open, feet together, feet open, as if they were shooting.
If you look at a sideline at an NFL game, which doesn't get focused on totally on a TV broadcast, but it's no different. If you're a defensive player and you go to the sideline, you've got to stay ready. You can't just cool off and then go out there and so it's that, once again,
like the bullpen
people
for a
would
pitcher.
think same when you look at a And soccer, you see them running up. The backup players are always running. It's one of those things where it gets down to what we say. It's an athletic sport. Period. You have a tendency to think of the motor in the car and, that type of thing. But there's that critical component that can lose a race for you or win a race for you.
Yeah, see, that's incredible. But what do you think in terms of the next generation of pit crew? Is it going to be automated? Are they going to be robots? Are you going to have, or is it still part of the sport?
I think it's going to be a part of the sport. I just, I think it's going to be, winning is a multidisciplinary. The fans don't want to know. It's who has the best engineers, who has the best technology, there's a constraint on what you can do with the car, but it's such tiny things you can do that gains you a tenth of a second that wins a race or loses a race. So it's a race team is it's engineers, mechanics, the pit crew athletes, the driver, the manufacturer. How much money is the manufacturer going to put into the sport? We have 3, I guess Dodge is looking at coming back. I'm not sure about that, but Toyota, GM, Ford, and what do they put in? There's a lot of things that ultimately produce that outcome on Sunday.
How do you see the sport really evolving, especially the integration of AI? How is AI changing the sport?
I'm not involved enough to know. And look, we can say AI with everything because I'm blown. All of us are blown away. The other day I said, I got to send something to Kim that's a bio for me. And what would have taken me 2 hours to write took 10 seconds to type into my AI app, Galaxy. In 10 seconds, I said, holy crap, I've done a lot of stuff in 40 years. I never would have been able to do that. So when you see just the simplest thing that AI can do, where you can say, take the data from the race. Now, here's something that I didn't realize. Now we have back at the race shop, Joe Gibbs Racing has an entire room that's monitoring data. Just, here in Charlotte, no matter where you are, that wasn't present. And they're looking for that one tiny thing that can win. And I'm guessing AI is extensively involved in that. No, everything's top secret in racing. You know that, Kim. I don't work there anymore, so I can tell you top secret things, and I don't know them because they don't let me have them. Oh no, everybody who follows the sport is following the Joe Gibbs Racing Chris Gabehart, the crew chief that left, and there's the big lawsuit. And one of the big stories in NASCAR is the big lawsuit between the crew chief, that head of competition that left Joe Gibbs Racing, with a computer that had a laptop that potentially had all this top secret stuff in it.
Can't leave that laying around.
Yeah, and it'll be now this big lawsuit's one of the big stories in NASCAR is this information, and you go, well, why is it that big a deal? Because it's the difference between winning and losing, this tiny bit of information. Well, now that with AI, we can only speculate in all sports. Now, we're still dealing with what, Kim? Human beings. It's human performance.
I don't think that could ever change in terms of, yes, they want to be faster, but take out that human connection, and then the sport goes to heck, right?
Well, no, it goes to, I'm looking at my iPad here. I can go to the NASCAR, racing app and race cars here in my studio, right?
It would be just a video game at that point, right?
Yeah. And I don't think it's going to go that way. The human part's going to be there. People are going to go, is it going to be, one of the things that scares me in sports, and I'm a big baseball fan, and when I watch a baseball game now, every time they go to the dugout, somebody's face is in an iPad. When you go to a football game and you look on the sideline, everybody's face is in an iPad. I guess I'm being old, but I'm not sure that's That's forgetting the human part, which oftentimes is what determines optimal output.
Yeah. And Douglas?
Yeah, just real quick. Remember what 20 years ago you had practice, and now they have the iRacing and the drivers can do all that now.
Yes.
And I'm wondering what you also thought about the new point system going back to where not one win and you're in, and it's going back to the whole season and being steady the whole time.
Yeah, I think that's going to be good. I think once again, let's go to English soccer. The downside potentially is if you look at English soccer, the season's over halfway, and you already know who's going to win. Their stands are still full. So I think you have to, weigh some of that in there. But I think, it's the difference between the entertainment and whether people are going to, it's all now about TV, how many people are going to watch, because it's still a sponsor-driven sport. NASCAR, and I think it's going to change, but NASCAR doesn't get all the teams don't get that TV money. And in most sports, I always tell people, I have a friend that works with the Dodgers. He said, we can play in an empty stadium and make money because of the TV. It's about the TV contract. So I think the sport's going to pay attention to those things.
What about the gas cans? Do you think they'll ever do the F1 type gas can?
No.
Okay, I didn't think.
No, I think the pit stops are going to stay in the race. I don't think they're going to. I think they're a part of it, and it's part of the competition. And they are in F1 too. Now, pit stops in F1 are 3 seconds, but they got 17 guys going over the wall, so that helps. 3 seconds.
Yeah, that's going to reduce. I mean, 17 guys. That's not sustainable now going forward.
Yeah, but F1, like I say, I think they want it to be more about the driver, and if you look at how it's done, the driver personalities and that type of thing.
Are you more a short track or a mile and a half or a Daytona track?
No, Daytona at places like Daytona, the big tracks, the pit stops aren't as important. They can be if you make a big mistake. But at the short track, if you look at like Darlington, where they're racing this weekend, pit stops win and lose the race. Yeah, I can go back and say the last, 100 races, probably 70 of them were determined by the last pit stop. So it's a big pit stop sensitive track.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Michael Lepp. Make sure to follow him on Instagram, LeppZone1. He's awesome. And Michael, we're going to have you back. I think we have 2 more shows in us. That's what I'm thinking. One on cycling.
I'm appreciative of what work you guys are doing. So, I can tell you some PAD athlete stories. They're athletes too. The training program I write for a peripheral arterial disease patient is no different than the training program I write for any athlete.
So everyone's going to have to stay tuned and make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel at youtube.com/the@ The Way to My Heart, to continue with the series with Michael Lepp and learn how you can be a high performance PAD athlete, or should I say padlete?
Yes. I love it.